which player is feeling the most pressure after this coaching change? Because, once the coach change, now it's up to the players. Now that the excuse is gone, which player is under the most pressure to perform?
Ross, just with Jacques Martin being the new guy, immediately my mind went to Drake Batherson, because I think Jacques Martin is going to look at Drake and say, he's got this is a guy you want to bank on this contract working out. If Drake can play at his potential, that's an amazing contract. But what do we keep talking about? The reason Drake Batherson was so good in his development was his two-way game. So if Jacques Martin can really work with Batherson and say, hey, look, we got to get you back to your two-way game. You can still put up points. You can still be a power play specialist, as I think Drake Batherson is. He's very good on the man advantage. But we can't have these lack of defensive efforts and giveaways and no strength in puck battles and along the boards. We got to get you back to what you're used to, especially now that Drake has that frame that he can use to really be more physical and be a better defensive player. So and just off the initial reaction, Ross, that's where my mind went.
A lot of people saying Tim Stützle as well, because, we have a lot of memories, us Sens fans who saw the early 2000s. The evolution of Jason Spezza was not linear. Mm-hmm. It was up and down. It was healthy scratching him. It was a matter of a man's game, and he was a boy. And even last week on TSN 1200, Jacques Martin went on and reminisced about Jason Spezza, saying, look, coming up as a youngster, he was always able to do whatever he wanted in any game. He was always the best player in any game he was a part of until you get to the NHL level.
Yep.
And then it's a matter
of exceptional status, Ross.
Yeah, and being the best player away from the puck. And how can you do that and help your team create offense by playing defensively? So to me, I think Tim Stützle might see the biggest change in his game, because there was a play last night. And look, the Sens have also been trailing a lot recently in games. And when the Senators find themselves trailing, the best players are always trying to put a little pressure, especially Timmy, to do a little more. And sometimes it's too much. When it's more, it's too much. But with Timmy last night, he tried to deke 1-on-4 entering the Vegas zone.
Yeah.
And you're like, it was giveaway, puck going the other way.
He does that a lot, too. He does it a lot.
He's going to be stapled to the bench if he does that under Jacques Martin.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If this was Timmy on a rebuilding team where he had no talent around him and he had to be that guy that did that, that's a different story. But I think Martin's going to sit him down and look at the film room and say, look, Timmy, you just blew by Claude Giroux, Brady Tkachuk. You didn't utilize, is that some more pounds in the system? Love it. You didn't use Jake Sanderson, an elite skater. You have so many options. Why do you feel the need to try to go through four guys? And then even if you get through those four guys, I'm not necessarily sure he has a plan after that. What are you going to do now? Now that you're flying through the zone trying to hold it. I think Tim Stützle definitely is a guy that he's going to have to learn for his points, because Tim Stützle is more than a point per game player. Leads the team in points, for crying out loud. But for his points to actually matter and help convert these losses into wins, he's going to have to play better defensively. And I think he's capable of doing that. Timmy is a nice penalty killer. So if he can start making better decisions and not feel like he has to be the guy that does it all, we could see a big shift for him.
So I'm seeing a lot in the chat. Brian, appreciate you guys are way too good to us here on a Monday afternoon. Coaching change in Ottawa. And I think it's Monday, December 18th. But it may as well be next Monday, Christmas Day right now for Senators fans. And again, I don't like piling on to a guy who just lost his job, but I honestly think that a part of DJ Smith is kind of relieved.
Relieved.
He wasn't going to resign. Why would he give up 5 months of NHL head coaching pay? That would be absurd. This is just a lack of evolution in his coaching with the team that has to take another step. So Pilsy, I'm seeing a lot of guys in the chat. You know what? How about this? For my fourth option, I'll just put goalies. Is that okay? I've got Timmy. Yeah. I've got Drake. You mentioned Drake. I also have Brady Tkachuk. A lot of people are saying the captain needs to be more committed in the defensive side of the puck and not try to fight everybody when things aren't going his way. And then I'll just put the goalies.
Yeah, I thought about doing goalies, Ross, but I don't know how much Jacques Martin is a goalie connected coach. Like some coaches, like DJ Smith, are like, I don't do anything with them. It's all in the goalie coach. So I wasn't sure about that. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if we have an immediate change or if there's going to be changes that we see over time. But I think, like I'm seeing a lot in the chat here as well, I think we're going to see, or at least I would hope to see, some major accountability and consequences happening here, whether it's benching for periods, sitting a game out, what have you, taking off the power play. I don't know. But I think we need to see these players understand that as much as they hate losing, they have to work through the pain, the growing pains of going from being comfortable with losing to wanting to win and hating to lose so much that it's going to take time and they're going to have to learn how to change things. And I think Jacques Martin at least has enough time to do this. That's what I was worried about, Ross, is they're going to fire the coach in March when there's no time for him to make any difference. And now it's just riding the season out. So at least finally they've got it figured out after Edmonton did it, after Minnesota did it, after St. Louis did it. They looked at themselves and said, maybe it's time we do this. And at least they've done it with enough time to hopefully turn this thing around.
I love how worldwide this show is. We've got Jamie writing in, hi from the UK. He's pleased the front office made this decision. We've got Australia in the house. We've got UK in the house. We've got North America, of course, here after the Senators made a decision that, frankly, it took way too long, Pilsy, but it's one of those better late than never.
Yep.
And just further on your point, when they decided to move on from Guy Boucher, as first reported by @Sens Central on Twitter, that was far too late. It was far too late in the game. And what are you going to do at that point? And I think
Mark Crawford did nothing for the rest of the year. Like, it was a waste.
And also they were bringing a guy off. Like, he literally took 3 steps to his right and was the head coach, right? Yeah. At least now with Jacques Martin, this was a nice little insider tidbit from Mark Mathot with us. And by the way, I sent Matt the link to join. I just said, if you're on the beach right now, you better join. So I'm waiting to hear back from him, but I think it'd be fun. He's always here from Germany. I want everyone to let us know where you're watching this show from, because we're both just here every day, and we're very this is exciting news.
This is such a mood changer, Ross. I didn't know what I was going to do with my day. I feel so much better now. Everybody in the chat, this is a good therapy session. We don't get to do that a lot. So
the timing that worked out. Like, if this happened next week, I would have been in Hawaii. And could you imagine? Like,
I would have been in the Dominican. Yeah.
Could you imagine the itch we would have had to speak on it?
Oh, we would have got out there. But I'm glad it's happening now, because now we can also see some shifts.
Games.
Yeah, exactly. We got Ross. We got games in hand, brother.
Oh,
we got games in hand.
How about the fact that Jacques Martin's first head coaching game back with the Ottawa Senators at home is against the team he won 2 Stanley Cups with, the Pittsburgh Penguins?
I like it.
I like it too. Yeah. I like it a lot.
And Jason Spezza up in the box too.
Ironic. Yeah, that's very ironic. Right? I wonder, what do you think Jason Spezza thinks of all this? That's kind of a
let's get him on the show. Jason Spezza, if you're listening,
open invite.
Yep.
Still haven't heard back from Pierre Dorion about his open invite back on the show. Sean saying, time to shed the loser mentality and bring in some fierce accountability. I think sometimes Jacques Martin was scorned for being holding people too accountable at times. So I think that hopefully you're not going from one extreme to the next, but I do think that there's something to be said.
Got to be in the middle somewhere.
It's got to be in the middle, but also I feel like people have eased with time, and like just a different era right now. Like Jacques Martin had like 2 or 3 heavies every team that he had. And we're going to have our best ofs coming out in about a week and a half. And one of the stories, and you guys can go listen to the interview too, Jamie Rivers joined us after Tarasenko signed with Ottawa. He's a St. Louis Blues defenseman, but he told a hilarious story about meeting Jacques Martin for the first time when he was when he came to Ottawa.
For sure. Yeah.
Hilarious. Yeah. Hilarious stuff. So Jacques Martin, obviously a long history. He's the longest serving head coach in Ottawa Senators history, Pilsy. Like, we're not talking about just a guy who came and went. This isn't Craig Hartsburg or Corey Clouston coming back after their cups of coffee, John Paddock and his 64 games. No, this isn't Dave Allison either and his 2 wins in 25 games. This is Jacques Martin. His next game coached will be his 693rd with the Ottawa Senators. Frankly, there were 2 more in there, but the real ones we'll remember here that he let Roger Nielsen coach 2 games because he had a milestone to get to. Roger Nielsen was his assistant coach at the time.
That's awesome.
So they gave him 2 head coaching jobs. I think he got to 1,000, if I'm not mistaken, but Jacques Martin. So that means that right after New Year's or around New Year's, Jacques Martin will have coached his 700th game as a member of the Ottawa Senators. This is his 10th season. Now, if what's old is new again, really is that. So look, Jacques Martin, he's got the 3rd best points percentage rather in Senators history. And if you look at playoff games, he's coached more than double anybody else in franchise history. So the experience is obviously there. He went and he worked with Florida for a little bit as a GM and head coach. He got a job with Montreal for a little bit as the head coach. But since then, he's been an assistant coach, working his way around the league, getting to pick up tools. Like, how valuable is it for Jacques Martin to have worked with Sidney Crosby for 3 years and now being able to share those stories and how Sid prepares himself and be able to share that with the team today and the Josh Norrises of the world who are trying to be those two-way centers, and Tim Stützle as well. I just think overall this is, look, they're going to have a full search in the summer, but this to me is the best they could have done. I would have been so disappointed if it was Davis Payne or Jack Capuano.
Oh my God.
Like, you know what? That would have just been like change for the sake of change. This is real change. This is 2 people who weren't in the organization 3 months ago and 3 weeks ago for Jacques Martin.
Exactly. And Ross, that's the big part, is this is 2 people that this ownership group brought in. These are their guys, while also being the past era's guys, right? Like, they did a good job of feeding into that nostalgia and tapping into that experience and familiarity in Ottawa with Martin and Alfie, while also being like, this is also new because we brought these guys in on our own decisions and we believe in them and we have a path that we see with them. So that's awesome. And yeah, you mentioned Jacques Martin, experience working with Crosby and all those guys. In his press conference, he also talked about what he learned from coaches like Mike Sullivan. Like, he used a Mike Sullivan quote right away, what he learned from him. So I think that this amount of knowledge and experience, and if you're Jacques Martin, you got nothing to lose here. Like, this isn't like DJ Smith, like Meth talked about. You're a first-time head coach. The last thing you're going to do is bench a big player. Now your reputation's ruined. Jacques Martin, his reputation speaks for itself.